Am I the a-hole for telling my brother's wife that he doesn't own my home? So I inherited my childhood 3-bedroom home after my mother passed away 5 years ago, along with a good chunk of cash. I live in that home right now, and not to brag, but it's a beautiful home. Now, I have a half-brother. We will call him Blake, and we share the same father, also dead. Blake is a deadbeat. Can't keep a job, jumps from relationship to relationship, make excuses, and blame everyone else for his problems. Just really not a good guy. But with my parents gone, he is the only family I have left. So I try to work around it, and he has been living with me for 1.5 years now after getting kicked out of his own apartment for not paying rent. Then, he went and got his newest girlfriend knocked up, and decided that meant they needed to get married right away. They got married at our local courthouse. Now I agreed to have her move in. She's carrying my niece or nephew after all. It's been 3 months since they got married, and she moved in, and she'd been rude, demanding, and just outright the worst the whole time. Originally, I chalked it up to being pregnant, but then one day she comes up to me and tells me that I have to move out. I'm confused and ask her what she means. She goes on about how with the baby coming, it's time to leave because they need a space. I tell her she has no right to kick me out of my own house, and she comments that since she married my brother, the house was part of hers now too, and that it's weird to have your husband's brother living with you and your kid. I realized then that she thought my brother owned at least part of the house. So I explained that she and my brother were in fact living with me, not the other way around. Letting her know I fully own it, and my brother has no rights to it, and neither did she. She goes quiet and runs off. When my brother comes home, they get in a huge fight, and she leaves to go to her mother's. My brother is now mad at me for telling her the truth. Honestly, up until this point I thought she knew, but my brother claims he didn't tell her he owns it. She knew the house was inherited, and since we're brothers, she assumed he owned half, and he just never corrected her. Am I the a-hole for telling my brother's wife that he doesn't own my home? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, and here's a tip. Get rid of them. Both of them. Have a nice day. Your brother is about to be a father to some poor unfortunate child and needs to start adulting. Right now, you're just enabling him to continue to be feckless. Not the a-hole. Decent chance she scarpers off, now that she realizes her marriage does not give her a share of the house. Getting pregnant and forcing marriage may have been accidentally on purpose, under the assumption half-brother had assets, which would explain why she's not so happy. Of course, if OP is silly enough to continue underwriting her life, she'll stick around. If it was accidentally on purpose, then if she's truly plucky, there is a decent chance she'll see whether she can change horses. It's a tricky maneuver to jump from one saddle to another while underway, but she may just see it as an enjoyable challenge. Not the a-hole, but you are foolish for letting them mooch off you like this. Prime example of why found family, or none, can be better than given. If Opie put his effort into his meaningful friendships, rather than these two gluttons, he'd be better for it. Not the a-hole, but Opie, have you talked to a lawyer? I've read about people finding loopholes and somehow ending up with property that wasn't originally theirs. Make sure you protect yourself. Typically that happens when the owner doesn't live there, and the other party has lived there for years and years. The girlfriend discovered the brother owned the house, and then didn't demand he leave still. So she clearly has some rational thoughts in her head. Adverse possession has to be hostile. That is, if they have explicit permission to live there, they are never going to just end up with the property. The worst they can do is drag an eviction battle out. Next story. Am I the a-hole for losing it with my former mother-in-law and saying I don't want to help her granddaughter? My ex-husband died 6 months ago. We were divorced for 3 years. Prior to that, after he cheated on me for about 6 years with a woman he married after our divorce. Ex and I share 3 children together. A 17-year-old son, 16-year-old daughter, and a 15-year-old daughter. Ex got his second wife pregnant while we were married, which is how the affair got revealed in the first place. I kicked him out and cut ties, except for semi-civil co-parenting. I have never had anything to do with his daughter who is now 3. After my ex died, my former mother-in-law took her in temporarily. She's in poor health, and my ex was her only child. The mother of the child had no family who was willing to take her, so she wanted to try and keep her out of foster care. My former mother-in-law asked me about 2 months ago to consider raising her granddaughter, seeing as she's the half-sibling of my children. I told her I did not want to do that. She spoke to my children, and they refused to ask me on her behalf. She suggested that my children might want to keep her in their family, and how could I deny them that chance? So I asked my children if they had any thoughts or plans to take her on once any of them were 18, and they all said no. My son said his grandma had mentioned that to him, but he didn't care. My girls share a similar sentiment, though she did not ask them directly. Former mother-in-law reached out again, and I told her my answer was still no. She suggested that her granddaughter is my family, but I cut her off and said that is not true. I told her I am not the child's mother, stepmother, and nor anything that would imply family. She told me she will need to let a caseworker know in the coming weeks that she needs a foster home if I can't take her. She told me to do it for her granddaughter, that she's innocent. How can I not love her? And rambled on a lot about that. So I lost my cool, snapped at her, and told her I don't want to help her granddaughter, and foster care is the best place for her if she can't raise her. Former mother-in-law told me I was a horrible, evil woman, and that it was no wonder my children don't care about their sister when I had that attitude about her, and she hoped one day it wouldn't come back to bite me in the butt. Am I the a-hole for the way I spoke to her and for what I said about her granddaughter? Edited to add, X and his wife, aka the mother of the child, both died. It was a car crash. Not the a-hole. Yes, the child is a half-sibling to your children, but that does not create an obligation on your part. Some people are able to take on roles like your mother-in-law is suggesting, and some people can't/won't. There is nothing wrong with that. Your ex-mother-in-law needs to back off. This was her choice. Now she can deal with it. And how great of a life would that child even have, being raised by the person who was cheated on, and her being a constant reminder of the infidelity? Seems kinder to give her a clean slate with a new family that can love her without baggage. To clarify, the clean slate would be the foster family not seeing the daughter as the product of an affair. Unfortunately, I don't think there are many outcomes where she doesn't go through trauma. I've heard my share of stories from adults who were the love child, and it's really heartbreaking to hear how the immediate and extended family couldn't unsee the betrayal, and the child suffered. I had one woman tell me she felt guilty for being alive. Apparently, she's choosing the path where she loses all of her grandchildren too. Raising a 3-year-old when your youngest is 15? Even if it was a good friend's kid, it's a lot to ask, and depending who, too much to ask. I would definitely cut contact if she's trying to guilt the children because of this. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. It is insane for the ex-mother-in-law to try to rope you into this. You went above and beyond even talking to her kids about this. That child has been dealt a terrible hand, and I hope she isn't failed by the foster system. I mean, it's not insane. It's desperate. I can understand 100% why she's trying to do it, but also why it's never going to happen. Everyone has been dealt a crappy hand here, and it's obviously gotten to an inevitable and pleasant conclusion. She's lashed out, which she obviously shouldn't, but the whole thing is just sad. No a-holes here, just a terrible situation that pushed people too far. No a-holes here. You are completely within your rights to say no, and I don't blame you. At the same time, I cannot fault a grieving mother for fighting tooth and nail to try to protect her grandchild from being mistreated in the foster care system. This is an awful situation all around. Next story. Am I the a-hole for liquidating my daughter's college fund to keep our dream house? I, 50 female, lost my husband 4 years ago. I also have a 16-year-old daughter. My late husband left me everything and told me to trust his lawyer. My husband had worked for 20 years as a doctor and did some minor investing, so I inherited over 7 figures. A year later, I decided to list our home of 12 years and received an offer too good to refuse. With the inheritance, as well as the influx of cash from selling the house, I decided to move my daughter and I to Malibu because we always dreamed of a home next to the beach. But my husband was exceptionally tight-fisted and called homes their money pits. We found a beautiful home by the sea. I never personally handled anything regarding buying a home before, so I did not anticipate all the extra costs beyond the sticker price. But my daughter was so excited, so I decided to go for it. My late husband's lawyer was furious at my decision, so I decided to stop taking his calls, and I ended up signing with a money manager who said that we'd be passively earning 90% of what surgeons earned per year. But the money manager ended up tanking a lot of our investments. I took the dwindling money out and made my own investments, which made it worse. And long story short, because all of that, I only have around $35,000 available to me now, not to mention our debts. With the amount available to me, I'm looking at only being able to pay 1 month of a mortgage/upkeep, and then I'm basically out of luck until my business gets clients. However, The place where we do have a significant amount of money is the fund my husband started for our daughter. With the money there, I could prevent our credit cards from being shut down and not have to worry about the mortgage for many more months. So I ended up liquidating my daughter's college fund. I told her about it today, and she was furious and said she cannot believe all her dad's work is gone. She also said she won't be supporting me for my retirement. Am I the a-hole for trying to fix my mistakes and trying to keep our house? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. You decided not to listen to the lawyer. You decided to move on to an extremely expensive place. And you decided to trust someone's shady advice. Now you're taking away your daughter's chances of being able to go to college loan-free? That money's not yours. You should be ashamed of yourself. He has it right. Malibu is a money pit for empty Airbnbs. One grocery store on the highway with outrageous prices. And almost no food except for tourist traps. Opie essentially gambled her 7-figure life savings, ruined her daughter's future, and now asks if she's an a-hole. Literally couldn't make some of the stuff up that I read on the sub. Yes, Opie, you're a selfish a-hole. You're the a-hole. You made an extremely poor financial decision and disregarded those around you who were offering you more sound financial advice. Having a home near the beach doesn't mean you need to move to Malibu, but I digress. You are absolutely the a-hole here. You robbed your daughter of a chance to start her life off comfortably and took money that was never intended for you. Sell this godforsaken money pit of a home, get somewhere you can actually afford, and take a class in personal finance management. Also, grow up? Opie literally goes to the attorney because they weren't telling her what she wanted to hear. I have a few lawyers in my social circle, and this is extremely common. From the sounds of it, emphasis on the extremely. This is what we want to do. That's illegal. You'll almost definitely be caught. It's a waste of your time and money. Well, I want to do it. I advise the exact opposite. Here's a list of reasons this is a terrible idea. God, this is why people hate lawyers. You don't get it. It's a conversation I think I've heard complained about dozens of times at least. Lol. Why would someone hire a lawyer for legal advice and then completely fly in the face of it? Hell if I know. I'm a lawyer. Can confirm. People ask lawyers whether they can or should do something and then become furious when we tell them no. You don't hear from them again until the thing they did anyway blows up in their face, at which point they are still furious. But this time it's because you didn't stop them. Just like on AITA, people are more interested in validation than the truth. And this is one of many reasons why I am no longer in legal practice. Last story. Am I the a-hole for ruining a wedding, although I told the bride I shouldn't sit next to my ex? I was in a relationship from 18 to 24 years old. He was 5 years older. He wanted children and marriage in the next 2 years, but I didn't want that at a time, so I broke up with him. I was sad about the breakup, but I knew that it was the right decision. I wanted to study without a child as I was 1 year away from finishing, travel with friends, and enjoying my 20s. After 1 year of our breakup, I had a one-night stand with a friend who had a crush on me for years, and after realizing I was pregnant, we stayed together. We moved together to another city because of our jobs. After the birth of our daughter, we married. I couldn't be happier with my husband, and we are now together for nearly 5 years and happier than ever. I didn't know if my ex knows that I became a mother, and since I moved away while being pregnant, I missed a lot of birthdays of our mutual friends, and he didn't follow me on social media. Now was the wedding from one of our mutual friends, and I was happy about the invite. But then I got a message from another one of our friends who told me that nobody told my ex that I became a mother and married, and that he didn't seriously date anybody else after the breakup. He's successful in his job and concentrates on that, but his friends are worried that he is lonely. They requested that I come without my child. We actually had this planned before, so my husband and me have enough time to reconnect, and my mother-in-law would be so happy to have our daughter overnight. And also to not mention my husband, which I disagreed. So I asked the bride if she wanted me not to come, and told her the request from our other friends, and she told me that I should definitely come, and that she doesn't see any problem with it. When we arrived at the wedding, we realized that we were seated next to my ex, which I found strange. I went quietly to the bride and told her that would probably be not the best idea, but she brushed it off. My ex barely talked to me but drank a lot. My husband chatted with another person from our table and mentioned our daughter after 2 hours sitting at a table. That's when my ex lost it. He made a big scene and accused me of lying to him about not wanting children. It was so embarrassing. And ultimately, my husband and I left while my ex got carried away by other guests. Since then, I got calls from mutual friends calling me the a-hole because I rubbed my happiness on my ex's face, and I'm a little bit confused. The bride isn't happy and accused me of ruining the wedding since I could just not mention my daughter, and that she was sad about the scene it caused. My ex lost it. He made a big scene and accused me of lying to him about not wanting children. You didn't cause a scene, your ex did. He's the a-hole. And you know what? Your friend is the a-hole too for sitting y'all next to each other. Knowing all that history, and she still thought it would be okay? Nope. Seriously, why the heck would she put Opie and her husband next to her ex? They say those that stir the third pot get to lick the spoon. There was no way the bride didn't know what she was doing. Either she was hoping for drama, or hoping to make Opie feel like crap once she saw her ex. Not the a-hole. Oh please, they sat you next to your ex on purpose. There was no way they didn't know he wouldn't behave that way when drinking. It's on him for acting that way, not you. You even asked to be moved. Total setup by her so-called friends thinking they could get you two back together. Pretty obvious whose side they were on when they broke up. The ex probably made himself look like a victim because the woman he wanted wouldn't marry and have kids with him when he was telling her to. And for the past 6 years, they've had to watch this poor sap be miserable that he couldn't control Opie. That even now he feels she owes him an explanation because she had the audacity to have children. And no one tried to get him to move on. Opie's so-called friends probably hoped she would show up alone to not upset the ex, and that they would magically fall back in love. I think the bride was hoping she would see her ex, and realize what a huge mistake she made, drop her husband and baby, then run off into the sunset with the ex.